Hello.
Hey there.
How's it
Can you hear
going,
me?
Matt?
It's going. How are you?
I'm doing great. It's so good to meet you.
You too?
Excellent. I'm excited to hear all about your story, but before we get started, like how long have you been with Deal Machine?
I've been subscribing for about 6 months and finally just closed my first deal 2 weeks ago.
Oh my
But
gosh.
I'm
How
very, very passively using it. So,
are you still flying high off of the first deal?
yep, doing a lot of deferred maintenance. I don't have really time to celebrate it, but it's one of those deals. But it's a slam dunk and it's a hell of a deal. And the situation is pretty awesome. I'm hoping it's worthwhile to some of the viewers because I know the program is the only reason it happened. So,
Oh, I love it. I
yeah.
can't wait to hear it. I want to tell people though, like, where are you located? What's your background? How did you get into real estate investing?
Yeah, so I'm in Eastern Pennsylvania, about 15 minutes north of Allentown is the biggest local city. I've been in real estate for about 3 years, first as a real estate agent and now newly as an investor. But the long-term goal is always investing for financial freedom for my family and myself. But it's always been an interest, but not a reality until recently. But outside of real estate, I fly corporate jets and
Oh, wow.
I'm all over the world, so it was one of those things. Like I had a lot of friends who are investors, and naturally, aviation tends to attract people who are heavy real estate investors
Oh.
of all sizes. So I have some pretty awesome guys to learn from and to be around. So I'm just a little guy in the pond, but I'm building traction very quickly. So I'm pretty excited.
That's amazing. So who did one of them tell you about like driving for dollars then I'm guessing?
Not really. They've actually been pretty exploding in their businesses for a while. I mean, they're building and refurbishing cities, not 5 units like I just got into. But um, the driving for dollars thing came from I started a few of the places we go. I get out and hike and I get out and run, which is why Deal Machine was one of those pretty awesome resources because I am outside every day for between 30 minutes to an hour just running, and you see the tall grass, you see the roof falling apart, and you don't really think about, oh man, how can I get a hold of those people? And as a real estate agent, I'm really part-time. I just do it for friends and family. But I actually signed up for Deal Machine about a year ago, and then I realized a lot of the stuff on there was unique, um, but also redundant because I could get all the same stuff from the MLS and the tax records. So I let the subscription expire and I let it go for a little while. But then I'm sitting here thinking, man, if I'm going to be an investor at any point, my time, it's just so worthwhile to have a system that you can log in and, oh, there's a house. Okay, punch it, preload a postcard, and it's sent out of sight, out of mind. It just, the convenience of being able to do that was astronomical compared to any amount of time I could sit on Google Maps and sending information to the MLS. So that in itself, for someone like me, it's invaluable. So I'm pretty excited about it.
Oh my gosh, I love it. That's so great. I love that, we have been seeing a lot more real estate agents coming into the investor side of things and needing to have that kind of separation
Mm.
too, with is sometimes the brokerages and stuff like that. So that's really awesome. So, okay, tell me about this story. Tell me about, I want to know it because now you've got me on the edge of my seat when you're like, this is going to be pretty great.
Well,
So,
it's a pretty awesome, for me. It's a slam dunk. For other people, it might be not even worth their time to listen to. But it's funny you bring up about the real estate agent stuff because I found, in at least in my brokerage, it's very uncommon to have real estate agents who invest, at least from what I'm seeing. And when you talk to a client who is an investor who wants to buy an apartment building, you really need to know what you're talking about as far as investing terms, as far as cap rates, returns, equity, the whole deal. It's not just a residential purchase. So this is like, it's great for you to be able to learn all those terms to be able to help people
mhm.
because you need to know what you're talking about when you're working with these guys. But anyway, so I told you before, I love running. I'm outside in the community all the time. I had maps printed out and I would run my map and I would check off houses that I sent postcards to that I physically mailed. And then Deal Machine came along. I heard it actually on a Bigger Pockets podcast, and I did a little promo code. Those guys are awesome. Between them and the other podcasts, that's, you know, flying around killing time, and that's what I listen to. And it's music only goes so far, but
Right.
I found you guys through them, And at the time, this was probably a year or so ago, and I experimented with it. And again, I didn't have much need for it at the time. But about 6 months ago, right after the pandemic kind of took over this part, we're an hour and a half from New York City, so it's pretty close to where the epicenter was. Things shut down pretty quick in Pennsylvania. So the only out that people had was to go outside, and you know, I took DealMachine with me on my run, and I went up and down the streets, and I canvassed the entire town. And people probably thought I was crazy because in the beginning, I was,
Right.
taking pictures, whatever. But I eventually got the Google Street View subscription, which was awesome. I've recently canceled it because I don't use that. I made a custom postcard that regardless of what the house looks like, that I would use it. However, up and down the street, I saw this one house, and I'd have the criteria set so that it was homes. You could set the equity that homers might have. You could set the years of ownership. You can set absentee or owner occupants. So what I did is I created a custom filter that it would only show owner occupants who've been there for longer than 10 years. And then what I'd do is I'd cross-reference it to my local knowledge because I grew up in this town, and to people that I knew. So I'm running down the street and I'd see the houses that popped up. I knew that there was potential for large equity, that they've been there for a decent amount of time. And those are the ones that I wanted to focus on. So I sent a mailer to a gentleman who I could literally throw a baseball at his house from my house. It's that close. And he calls me on the blue one day. He's like, "Hey, I got your postcard. I just want to tell you." And this is exactly how he started the thing. He said, "Hey, I don't want to sell you my house, but would you buy my business?" I'm like, "I don't know. This is a loaded question. What do you do?" And he proceeded to tell me that he owns a 5-unit apartment building that touches his property, and he's ready to get out of the landlord business. He proceeds to tell me about where it is, and it turns out that I knew exactly where it was. It's across the street from my house and down a block, and this place is a staple in the community. It's 2 hair salons and a house, 2 apartments, and a whole bunch of unfinished space that has massive room for added value.
Wow.
And I'm sitting here thinking, okay, what's his crazy number? This guy wants to cash out. And we met for drinks one night at the local one restaurant in town. And it was a really, really good conversation. And the only thing that saved it was because he had a number in his mind. He wanted $300,000 for this property.
Okay.
And then at the time, I wasn't really that good at evaluating commercial or investment properties. So I had some help with people putting into it. I put my number at about 270 is what I thought this place was worth. I had a good friend of mine who's a home inspector come with me. We toured the property, and I was really, really happy. The tenants were all happy with the building. Everything seemed okay. But one thing I noticed right off the bat, that this place has about $41,000 in gross rents. If I were to adjust it to what they should be, and not what they were in the 1990s when he bought it and hasn't changed it, the property has massive, massive room for growth. So long story short, a few beers, we find out that we know so much about each other and our connections that he did not want. I gave him the presentation as a real estate agent. You have to, I can't mislead people. Not that investors would, but all right, I gave him 2 presentations. Matt's going to sell your place on the market. Matt's going to buy your place as an investor. Mm-hmm. It was actually better for him because he saved all the commission. He knew that it needs lots of work, lots of deferred maintenance. And his rents were under market by a lot. So when an appraiser comes to do the income approach, they're going to see that this place is not really producing, and it's not going to appraise very well. Mm-hmm. So I asked what his number was. He told me 300. Back and forth, and a whole bunch of conversations later, we settled at $238,000.
That's a lot different than both of your starting points.
It is. It needs a lot of work, and I was willing to work with him on it. But the better part of the whole 238 is after some education, he really valued my education to him because we sat down and I explained the whole thing. I did not want to feel like anyone's being taken advantage of. And I'm still learning this, so I took it as an opportunity for me to kind of self-educate or educate him. I actually had him offer to seller finance the entire deal to me. The entire $238,000 on a 3-year note, and he would take a cash out refinance in 3 years.
Wow.
Yeah. And what changed that is that I found out what he really wanted was that he needed about $70 to $100,000 now to buy a piece of land about an hour north of here to start. So seller finance, I would have to come up with a lot of money to begin with, which I was okay doing. Otherwise, I wouldn't be looking. But he had offered to cover that, which I thought was very, very cool of him. But we compromised. He ended up paying part of my down payment on a conventional loan and all of my closing costs. So I came out of pocket $0 at closing for a $238,000 5-unit apartment building that makes 40 grand a year.
Wow.
Yep. The net operating income's about 31,000, and the place appraised. So I bought it for 238. The place appraised at 265 because the rents are low. And we did the calculations based on the appraiser. It would appraise for over $300,000 after I purchased it. Went into each unit and had a conversation with them. You probably have heard of Rentometer. I subscribed to their service. I think I actually heard it through you or Bigger Pockets. And I just went in and printed out the address, what the average rent would be for a 1-bed, 1-bath, or for a 2-bed, 1-bath house. There's 5 units there. And I sat down with them. Look, I'm not telling you your rent's going up, but I'm telling you that if you move out, these are the numbers your rent's going to be. So I'd like them to be there in 3 or 5 years. Can we work on this over the next few years? Because they all had existing leases. Every single one of them took that conversation super productively, and I got over $150 more a door instantly with a new lease, times 5 doors.
Oh my
By
God.
putting it in their court. I said, I don't want your rent to go up. I'm sure you don't want your rent to go up, but this is where you need to be. And I made it very clear that I did my research and they were understanding. They know the rent hasn't gone up in a long time. And it worked out really, really well. So I'm into a $300,000 apartment building with vacant space to create a 6th unit for basically $0 out of pocket.
Oh my gosh.
Mm-hmm.
That is crazy. Definitely not where I thought this was going. So like,
Me neither.
you're like, yeah, meaning, and
Yep.
yeah, I think that's the most beautiful thing about this though. And I can tell that you are going to be successful is that you're just so transparent with
Mm-hmm.
your seller, and you have to be, and he obviously trusts you. Like, that's amazing. I mean, you go looking for, you talked about you go looking for this owner occupied home, and you end up getting, like, this story just went completely the opposite way. I was like, oh yeah, he get it under contract. He, sells it around. So are you looking now? Do you still want to you were looking to just do wholesaling though, correct? Was that what
No, in fact, I was looking to buy strictly single family and one-up rent them, do a little value add, and do a cash out refinance like that. We had used our home equity line as like the down money for all this thought at the time. And when my wife and I got into it, she was kind of letting me do most of this. She wasn't super, not sold on the whole deal, but she was cautious. I do have my flying career, and that's always priority, but this stuff is building in the background to kind of help supplement whatever retirement ever happens to be. God knows when we're old enough to pull out retirement, we don't know what the world's going to look like. So real estate is the slam dunk thing. But to answer your question, we had no clue what this was going to look like. He called and he said, I don't want to sell you my house. I'm like, okay, great. Why are you calling? But it turned out to be an awesome scenario. We're great friends. We still get together. And this has only been 2 weeks now.
Oh my gosh. That it blows my mind. Now talking strategy for people, like, were you just sending out marketing or were you cold calling and all that stuff?
Not a single cold call. And that's one of those things as a real estate agent, I'm trying to be extremely professional and transparent because you have to be. I don't want to be that guy that just calls and bugs, especially, how many election text messages have you got in the last 24 hours? It's ridiculous. I don't want to be that guy. I would like to have nice, steady referral business of people that I know and their contacts. So I have a little bit of a different aspect because I became a real estate agent to learn how to be an investor. I didn't go the other way. And I'm not a salesman. I don't want to sell cars or houses or whatever, but it's a really good way to learn the laws, what you can and cannot do. And it worked out in this case really well because I came super prepared. I had everything typed, and I'm extremely organized and anal retentive when it comes to details. So it worked from the seller's point of view too, because he was education and impressed from day one.
I
So
love
as
that.
far as as far as tactics though, I think the reason for this whole call is because that the interface is so easy when you're driving down the whole driving for dollars thing. I tried the tracker. It didn't work too well for my method because I'm like this all directions. But when I planned it out and went down the streets and up and down, and I knew exactly what type of home, not just all homes, when I did the research and pulled out greater than 10 years owners in the home with, I think there's an equity filter in there somewhere. I can't
Yeah.
remember. And is there also a mortgage filter?
Yes, there is like a, yeah, you
One of
can
the things I noticed is a lot of the times homes that don't have a mortgage aren't showing up in a DealMachine filter. Because I know, for example, several of my neighbors who are elderly, their homes are not showing up that they've been there longer than 10 years, but I know for sure they have been. So if you click on it, it'll say, oh, bought in 1979. It's not going to show up in like the green dots or the purple, whatever color it shows.
right.
So there's a lot of opportunity there for people to research what the program doesn't show you, because I'm sure I'm not the only one using this. I got a postcard in my mailbox the other day from some guy doing the same thing. I just laughed at it.
Oh my
But
gosh.
it's, I don't know whose farm area is this close, but I'm not a real estate agent, but I start the phone call or I start the conversation like that. Look, I need you to know, I'm going to talk to you like I'm going to sell your house and like I'm going to buy it. And when we meet, I'm going to present you two completely different folders. And one's going to have this and one's going to have this, and you can choose. I can't convince you as a wholesaler or whatever. You can, in theory, you're practicing real estate in all essential means, but
Mhm.
it's the program itself just makes it so easy to be able to locate exactly what you want. And I don't know, I definitely wouldn't be here without that gentleman or his house or the creepy Google Street picture that has a person walking in front of his house either. But it's, the whole situation is a direct result of Bigger Pockets, the DealMachine, just doing the canvas of the town. But you can't realistically do every single house.
Right.
It's not possible. I mean, first off, you'd spent all of your marketing money. I spent
I was just going to
to
ask you
that day.
how many times had you hit him already?
So people ask about leads, and leads are leads that you qualify. But to me, a house that's falling apart that needs a roof and long grass is not a lead. For me, a lead was that exact type of property that I've located. So I sent just under 500 out. And to me, that was an investment of $500 plus the 6 months of subscription. I'm in it for $700 or $800. And I'm like, you know what? I'll give it one shot. I did a few webinars, the calls that you guys did, and you're like, you can't stop. You got to keep going, keep going. Eventually, it'll pay for itself when one comes in. And I'm sitting here thinking, shit, I just spent $800 and I just got a $300,000 building for free. What happens if I keep doing this? You know? And I honestly, and it sounds really bad, I haven't sent a single mailer since then because it's been so much work getting this thing together that as
Oh,
soon as things, we're doing some repairs on the property now, and I just became an instant landlord to 5 units. You know,
that's a
I'm learning
lot.
the
That's
process.
so much.
It is, and at the same time, I have a lot of people that are helping it with me too. And the one thing I want to avoid, especially with my job, if we're overseas traveling or if I'm working or whatever, and a leaky toilet comes in at 3 o'clock, I can't be disturbed by that. So property management is a big thing for me. And I've had a lot of local support, although we don't have a property management contract yet, between my local friends, family, contractors. I have a dedicated business line that we have all the calls route through, and people answer that when I'm flying. It's a huge network that I've been able to at least piecemeal together until the point where the thing can justify just 100% property management.
Oh my
So
gosh. This is amazing. Like you're
I
literally
love it.
2 weeks into being a landlord. I mean, I'm not judging you at all for not sending any mail out yet, but but the thing is that it is about the consistency. And once you start that up again, it's going to be another, well, who knows? This
Exactly.
definitely wasn't what you thought. And so the
No,
next one will be totally different too.
I fully expected it to go a few mailers out because I had it, the consistency or the schedule, I had it at 90 days at first instead of 30.
Oh,
And then as soon as I got the phone call from this guy, and as soon as I printed the contract, not as soon as we signed the contract, as soon as I printed it and came out there, I'm like, all right, this is getting real, real quick. I stopped all mailers because I didn't have the capital or the fellow investors to be able to take on any more deals. At the time, I was the first deal is always crazy, and I learned really, really quick that you have to have everything in a line. But now I have a lot of resources that people, just because of this and talking to people, I started hosting a local meetup for some of our local investors too. Some people I've met through aviation and people that share interest in real estate investing. And because of that, it can do this really quickly, but I don't necessarily want it to, because I have to balance flying, family,
I
and
was just
then
gonna say, man, you have your
retirement.
hand in like a million cookie jars. Like,
Mm,
my goodness. This is, I mean, I'm like a little anxious for how much you have going on, but I'm excited too. And I think that's great that you're, being realistic with what you can actually, do right now. And you don't want to, especially with you're dealing with a lot of people who are probably kind of vulnerable with like if they want to sell their house, and that's a huge
mm.
thing. So you want to make sure you're sharp as a tack. And it sounds like be super prepared, so you have to be at the capacity to do that. So that's amazing. I love it. And I'm excited. So now once things kind of calm down, are you looking to just like get more people, or what do you see the future looking like, I guess?
So this whole thing kind of changed my perspective, from owner occupant, lots of equity people, to multi unit residential. And whether it's 4, whether it's 10, the numbers are so much better. And when you start having people who show that they have interest in helping you acquire properties, if you could buy something with help from other people that's undervalued, and there's a lot of that in this area, it's a pretty booming real estate market here for single family homes. As an agent, you can't get an offer accepted unless it's $30,000 over
Wow.
and no contingencies. It's stupid. People, I can't in good faith offer to help someone like that. Not that sounds bad. I can't in good faith advise someone that's in their best interest.
Right.
But at the same time, there's going to be lots of screaming deals coming down the pipe here in the next few months when people just want to get out. This guy, the reason he sold his property is because 2 years ago he lost his wife to cancer, and they bought the property together as their retirement plan. And then last year he lost his son to a heart condition, and
Oh,
he just wants to be out. And when we had our adult beverages at the closing table after we got the keys, he said this is the best thing that's ever happened to him. He said it ranked on his wedding day when his kids were born. He said this is the happiest day of his life,
oh my
because
gosh.
he was, I helped him get out of a situation that he didn't want to be a part of anymore. And he helped me get into a situation that I could never imagine being this good. So I know it doesn't happen very often, but the DealMachine made it happen, and it just, for me, is an absolute slam dunk. So the future is focusing on that type of scenario, regardless of how long it takes. I'm a people person. I like helping to solve people's problems, and it takes another year, 2 years, whatever. But one deal like this every few years is much better than a deal every 6 months, to me, at least for now. So
Right. I love that. And I can see that that's going to, I mean, I always see that people in this business who have a heart like yourself are going to go farther just because what you do give to people, you get back. So I wish you all the best. This is going to be amazing. And I want to hear about more when you do get to more. I want to have you back on. Maybe you do a live if you're available to answer people's questions. And
sure, that'd be fun.
awesome. Well,
Yeah.
if you need anything at all, just let me know. But thank you so much for sharing your story.
It's been fun, and I don't know where I'd be with it without the ease of interface. That's the biggest thing that I'd like to, stress to everybody. If there's one piece of advice, if you're a runner, if you're driving, if you can preload your database, whatever you need, it's just so easy to flip in the phone, click with marketing. It might be a little bit more expensive than other places, but holy shit, when your time's worth, not stopping and pulling over and taking a picture and loading it into a program, that's the only reason I got this, is because of how easy it was.
I
So
love
I would
it.
have never even thought about this place.
I love it. Oh, that makes my heart so happy. Well, good. I'm glad. And if there's like, again, if there's anything else we can do for you, just let us know.
Will do. Thanks for your time.
You too. Have a good weekend.
Yep, you as well.